Hey guys, tonight we step softly through sun-dappled courtyards, past woven baskets stacked with ginger root, and under the slow flapping awnings of a market where nothing, not even a glance, goes unnoticed. You're in the Ashanti Kingdom now, sometime in the 15th or early 16th century, and you're not here to trade yams. You're here to flirt, gently, strategically, and under the watchful eye of every matriarch from your clan to the next village over. Of course, you probably won't survive this courtship process. It involves 3 ants, 7 veiled tests, and exactly 0 direct questions. One misplaced compliment about someone's palm oil can get you politely blacklisted for a generation. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening in Accra, Alaska, or anywhere in between, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. I love seeing that scroll by dot now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking slowly now, not because you're tired, but because speed suggests desperation. You carry nothing too flashy, but enough to imply your family is decent, that you know your way around a cassava harvest, and maybe, just maybe, that you're old enough to handle a household. You pause before the textile stall. This isn't just fabric. These are kente cloths, each hand woven with a name, a proverb, a prayer, Eben for safety, and Kain Kim for life's zigzags. You choose one that signals respectability, but leaves a little room for curiosity, maybe the one with subtle indigo waves, suggesting emotional depth and the ability to make a mean groundnut stew. Nearby, young women pretend not to notice you, and you pretend not to notice them pretending. There's an art to this. Walk too close and you're presumptuous, too far and you're invisible. You keep exactly 1 stall's width of distance between you and the woman plaiting her cousin's hair. She sees you. Of course she does. But she doesn't look up yet. Instead, she adjusts her wrapper slightly, pulling the cloth tighter around her left shoulder. It's a signal, maybe. Historians still argue whether Ashanti courtship rituals were rigidly codified, or mostly improvised within a matrilineal framework. The truth, as always, is somewhere between the linguist's scroll and the village gossip's version. You slow again near the dried fish vendor. The girl has stood now. She's gone to refill a small calabash bowl at the water gourd, another signal, possibly. Or maybe she's just thirsty. That's the trick. Every movement might mean something, but most will mean nothing if you're not invited to interpret them. You shift your basket from one hip to the other, and glance, not stare, at the polished cowrie shell necklace glinting under her collarbone. That particular pattern, tiny cowries grouped in 4s with a space between, is sometimes worn by unmarried women during Yam Festival season. It's not Yam Festival season. A younger girl, her sister, probably giggles behind her hand. You've been seen. Now comes the test of posture. You square your shoulders, adjust your wrapper modestly, and approach with the slow, easy rhythm that says, "I'm not looking for anything, unless it finds me." Your greeting is respectful, hands clasped, eyes lowered just enough. The ant, sitting nearby, gives a non-committal grunt. She's wearing a wrapper printed with tiny white tortoises. You make a mental note. Tortoises in Ashanti symbolism often stand for patience, and patience here is currency. You're invited to sit. This is a good sign. A wooden stool is dusted off for you, placed deliberately next to, not across from, the family matron. It means this conversation is being allowed, but it will not yet be direct. Instead, you're asked what you think of the cassava crop this year. You answer in proverbs. It's a linguistic chess game with no clock and infinite pawns. Someone brings out fans made of woven grass. The heat rises. You sweat, not from temperature, but from decoding the 15 conversational layers underneath. Someone's comment about plant and prices. Meanwhile, the young woman continues threading tiny blue beads onto a string, as if none of this is happening. But it is. Beads are never just beads here. That sequence, 3 blues, 1 red, and an ivory. Spacer tells a story. Blue for calm, red for vigilance, ivory for memory. It's almost a dare. Can you guess what kind of man she's looking for? You nearly laugh, but you don't. The tortoise ant is still watching. Mainstream historians agree that Ashanti market spaces, especially in regional capitals like Kumasi, doubled as social arenas, especially for women, who dominated both trade and domestic diplomacy. Here, power wears gold and asks sly questions about maize. That's when a calabash bowl of water is offered. This is an escalation. If you drink, you accept the invitation to continue. If you decline, you do so forever. You nod, bow slightly, and sip. The water is cool, faintly flavored with lemongrass. The young woman finally looks at you. Just once. Just enough. That's all you get today. You leave the market as slowly as you arrived. Pulse louder than your sandals. A group of drummers passes by on their way to the shrine house. The rhythm is upbeat talking drums. They call them, used to send messages across the hills. But this message is much smaller, carried only between glances, beads, and barely noticed. Sized up by nightfall, everyone in her family will know you came. By morning, you'll know whether the calabash held hope or a gentle refusal, for now. You walk through the scent of roasted plantain and charcoal smoke, trying not to smile. When morning comes, it brings more than sun and birdsong, it brings scrutiny and soup. You wake in your mother's compound to the familiar clatter of grinding stones and the wafting smell of something richly peanut-based simmering over a fire. You're about to participate in a ritual as sacred and precarious as any oath-sworn battle pact. The test meal. The family of the young woman you met yesterday has sent an invitation, wrapped as always in plausible deniability. You've been invited to help with market errands nearby, but you know everyone knows you'll end up seated on a carved stool, beneath the shade of a kapok tree, sweating politely as several generations of women pretend they aren't, evaluating your every word, bite, and napkin fold. The kitchen is alive when you arrive. Pots bubble, children scatter. A goat stands directly in your path, blinking like it's the one who arranged this entire courtship and isn't impressed so far. You're guided gently but firmly by an older woman with a gap-toothed smile and a voice like a riverbed full of stones. She tells you to sit. You sit. She tells you to wait. You wait. Then comes the soup. Now, Ashanti food is no joke. Groundnut stew, light soup, fufu, kontomire with snails. It's all rich, layered, and served steaming. But today's bowl isn't just food. It's a questionnaire disguised as lunch. The groundnut soup arrives first, redder than usual, flecked with chili oil. Spicy, not melt your face spicy, but enough to make your next 5 answers interesting. You're handed a small ball of fufu and a bit of dried fish. No cutlery. This is intentional. Your first test. Eat without flinching. If your brow sweats too early, you look weak. If you power through too fast, you seem greedy. If you overpraise, you flatter. If you underpraise, well, enjoy your cold walk home. A child watches you from behind the water jar. You pretend not to notice. The soup is good. Surprisingly good. Smoky, layered with a tang of something earthy maybe. Dawa dawa. You nod slowly and offer a single word, asum, the Twi word for story. Because that's what this is now. The questions begin. Not from the girl's mother, she sits nearby, shucking garden eggs with serene indifference, but from a rotating cast of Annie's cousins and one suspiciously informed neighbor who just happens to be walking by. They ask you things in that classic Ashanti way, sideways, through stories. One asks if you prefer okra or gushi, but what she means is, how adaptable are you? Another asks about your grandmother's yam yields. She means, you come from hard-working stock, or were you born soft-handed? Historians still debate the boundaries of these culinary courtship customs. Some argue they were formalized rites of passage, others believe them to be more fluid, shifting with the mood, the season, and the gossip of the last harvest. But here's what's certain. Your spoonless strategy just told everyone in the compound. Whether you were raised right, you get one surprise. The girl is here, too. She's just inside, pounding cocoyam leaves with a wooden pestle as tall as your leg. Her hands move in a rhythm that says she's listening, even though her face never turns your way. A single bead dangles from her left ear, an orange agate. Orb that wasn't there yesterday. Message received. The goat bleats again. You try not to interpret that. As you finish the soup, a small dish of fried plantain is placed near you. No one says why. You know why. It's dessert, and it only appears if you've passed. The family matriarch finally speaks. Did you find the spice too bold? Her tone is light, but her eyes are measuring. You answer with a small shrug and a smile. It woke me up. She chuckles. So, does the neighbor. Urine. Now comes the quiet part, gossip diplomacy. As you help tidy the yard, because of course you offer, you begin to hear the real feedback. Not from the women you spoke to, but from their younger relatives, passing in and out of doorways. One hums a song about clever suitors. Another jokes that her cousin should cook like you next time. You're being discussed, dissected, weighed. And you're sweeping leaves slowly. Acting like this is the first compound you've ever swept for fun. The girl finally emerges. She walks past you, headed to the clay basin to rinse her hands. She doesn't speak, but as she pauses, she drops a small bead, a single blue one, onto the edge of the broom you're holding. You don't pick it up right away. That would be too eager. Instead, you finish sweeping. Then, as you carry the leaves to the compost, you slip the bead into your wrapper pocket. It's done. She's open to the next step. The families will talk tonight. You'll be informed tomorrow indirectly, of course, whether this courtship will proceed to drums, gifts, and more dangerous soup. As you walk home through the banana grove, the wind picks up. Palm fronds shush above you like old Annie sharing secrets. Somewhere, a talking drum begins to beat. The next morning begins with rain, not a fierce storm, just a steady, slanting hush that softens everything. The world smells like wet earth and wood smoke. You're perched beneath the overhang of your mother's granary, pretending to inspect. Agored but really just thinking. About her. About that blue bead. About how no one's said anything official yet. But somehow, everyone's behavior has changed. Your uncle, who normally greets you with sarcasm and a list of chores, only nods at you this morning. Your younger sister tries not to giggle when she hands you your sandals. Even the neighbor's parrot, who usually hurls insults in 3 languages, greets you with a shrill, "You better comb your hair." In Ashanti tradition, the next phase is known as a bod west of the slow ritual of gift-giving and ceremonial errands, where intentions are translated into tangible action. You don't just say you're interested. You show it. With kola nuts, beads, a few coins, a strip or two of bright cloth, and patience. So much patience. You begin with the easiest gift, time. Time to carry water to her household unasked. Time to offer your brothers help in repairing their compound wall, even though you're the one who'll end up lifting the mud bricks. Time to greet her father with the perfect combination of respect and just enough ribbing to suggest you're not terrified of him, even though you absolutely are. You never say her name, not yet. That would be too bold. Instead, you say things like, "I was passing through," or "My aunt said you needed cassava." These statements are never true, but everyone pretends they are. Your first real offering, a small bowl of kola nuts wrapped in patterned cloth, is handed off to her grandmother via child courier. You're told later that she laughed when she unwrapped them, not because the gift was foolish, but because the way you folded the cloth reminded her of her own first suitor. You take that as a win. The girl still doesn't speak to you directly, not even when you cross pots at the communal well and end up lowering her calabash bucket. With the casual ease that you practice daily behind your compound, she nods, thanks you softly, then balances the bucket on her head and walks away. But she leaves something behind, a single palm frond tucked against the wall where she stood. It's bent into a circle. You recognize the signal. This is going well. Historians still argue whether Ashanti courtship was more about family alliance or personal romance. The truth is, it was both intertwined like kindred patterns, where no single thread tells the story alone. A couple's match had to please the ancestors, the living elders, the unborn children, and at least 3 nosy neighbors. Good luck with that. Your next gift is trickier. Cloth. Cloth is currency, reputation, symbol. You can't just hand her a wrapper and call it a day. You consult your aunt, who pulls open a carved chest and lets you pick from her prized stash. After an hour of fingering wax prints and debating symbolism, you settle on a bold indigo piece with dancing birds on it. Freedom and flight. Optimism, too. Your aunt approves. You wrap it carefully with dried lavender and a single guinea fowl feather. This time, the delivery is public. A drumming troupe is scheduled for the weekend's Yam Festival. You know she'll be there, along with everyone else who's ever wanted to watch someone else's romance unfold like a market day soap opera. So, you time your approach carefully just after the second dance, when attention is split between the rhythm and the roasting plantains. You step forward and place the cloth at her grandmother's feet. The drumming stops, only for a second, but it's enough. The grandmother nods, her expression unreadable. The girl glances at you and then at the cloth, then back to you. She smiles just barely. Then she stands and ties the wrapper loosely around her waist. You hear someone behind you whisper, "This one's serious." You pretend not to notice. The next few days pass in a blur of errands, offerings, and what you've come to think of as chore flirting. You help weed their cassava patch, and somehow she ends up weeding the same row. You pound yam like it's a demonstration sport. You dance badly at the evening drum circles, and she laughs just loud enough for you to hear. You even participate in the dreaded storytelling night. This is a minefield. One wrong proverb, and you'll be mocked for weeks. But you pull it off. A tale of a spider who tried to outwit a palm wine tapper and lost his shoes in the process. It's funny, just gently enough. And she adds her own line at the end. But the tapper never missed a step. Everyone laughs. You survive. Then, finally, you're summoned, not by her, by the elders. You arrive at the family's shaded meeting space, where 3 elders wait, 2 from your family, 1 from hers. There's food, there is drink. There are formal questions about lineage, temperament, wealth, health, and sleeping habits. You pretend not to choke on the last one. This isn't a marriage negotiation. Not yet. It's more like an official yes, if all continues smoothly. A public nod that says, this courtship is real. There will be no more rivals. You've passed the test. You've eaten the soup, given the cloth, endured the gossip, swept the compound, survived the proverbs. The girl arrives near the end, carrying a calabash of palm wine. She kneels, offers it to her grandmother, who takes a sip, then hands it to her daughter, who also sips. Finally, it reaches you. You drink, careful not to overdo it. The wine is sweet and earthy, and your hands tremble just enough to be noticed. Then, she says your name for the first time. Not loudly, not theatrically, just your name, softly, like a word she's practiced. Everyone claps. The drummers, already waiting nearby, begin to play. You don't dance. Not yet. That's for later. For now, you sit beside her as the music swells and the sun begins to set, painting the compound in gold and ochre. You've moved from hopeful visitor to accepted suitor. The next phase of all continues is the most delicate one of all. It starts the next morning with a whisper and a riddle. Your grandmother leans in as you help her prepare millet cakes, her fingers dusted with flour, her eyes sharper than ever. Now comes the part where your words must wear clothes, she says, tapping your forehead. No more plain speaking. Use beads. Use stories. Let the symbols do the talking. She's referring to Ntoma Niahini, the language of courtship through objects. Gold weights, beads, carved tokens, folded cloths. Even certain foods, all of it speaks a dialect more layered than any tongue. You're about to learn how to express love without saying it. Not because you're shy, but because here, love must be elegant, patient, coded like a proverb in a dream. Your first task is to choose the Nkaienkin, the spiral pattern bead. Meant to convey life's journey is full of twist. It's a common first token, traditionally gifted when the relationship is steady but still uncertain. You visit the local bead maker's workshop, where polished stones and glass pieces lie like treasures in sand. He holds up 3 spirals, one blue, one amber, one made from fired clay with a faint shimmer. You choose the clay. It's imperfect, slightly asymmetrical. That's the point. This is no fantasy romance. You've tripped, sweated, and nervously spilled soup on your wrapper. Real love requires grit. You tie the bead onto a leather cord and deliver it quietly, slipping it to her cousin while she weaves. You pretend not to notice when she later walks past with it tied around her wrist. The next day, you find a small bundle on the ground near your family's doorway. It's wrapped in leaves. Inside is a single black bead with tiny white lines, the symbol of Tueredu with the writer's tree. It means, I am recording everything. You laugh out loud. A gentle warning, wrapped in affection. She's been watching and remembering. Historians love to argue about the precise meanings of Ashanti bead symbology. Some say each bead had a strict code, a kind of wearable sentence. Others argue that context changed everything, that a red bead could mean love or warning, depending on how it was worn, who gave it, and whether there was a festival happening that week. As with most living traditions, the answer is probably both. Now that the bond has moved past flirtation and into symbolic exchange, the families take things more seriously. Meetings become more formal. Parents consult distant cousins. Matrilineal lines are traced and retraced to make sure no forbidden overlaps exist. Someone even brings out the family stool, a sacred heirloom that links your bloodline to a legendary Ashanti war captain who once won a battle by convincing the enemy's drummers to switch sides mid-performance. Your story, not quite that legendary, but it's gaining traction. You're invited to the girl's family compound for a day of shared labor. This isn't busy work, it's observation. You'll be watched not directly, not rudely, but carefully as you sweep the courtyard, help pound fufu, and join the men in repairing the goat pens. Every mistake is noted, every kindness remembered. You help an old uncle up from his seat. Without being asked, you offer the last fried yam wedge to a younger sibling. These things matter more than gifts. In the afternoon, her mother calls you aside to the veranda. She doesn't sit, just folds cloth as she talks. You know she snores. She says. You blink. Like a small goat, she continues, a smile twitching at the corners of her mouth. And she eats more than you. Much more. Can you handle that? You nod. She smirks, hands you a strip of cloth, and walks away. It's patterned with small fish, a subtle blessing. Fish symbolize abundance, adaptability, and crucially good fortune in marriage. Later that week, you prepare your formal bead gift. Not just one, this time. A full set, each piece chosen with care. A blue dawn bead for peace, a green Kinsin bead for interdependence, and finally a red and white ababumum bead, symbolizing loyalty under pressure. You pack them into a carved calabash and send it with your younger brother, who's giddy with the importance of his errand. The calabash returns empty. This is very good. The following day, the girl's family reciprocates. Her grandmother delivers a small, weighty pouch to your household. Inside, nestled in silk, are 4 miniature gold weights, each no larger than a thimble. The first depicts 2 birds drinking from the same bowl, the second a stool with 3 uneven legs, the third is a snake coiled around a fish, and the last a lion with a broken tail. Your uncle explains them one by one. The birds mean shared joy, the stool, balance despite difficulty, the snake, cleverness, the lion, a reminder that even pride has its limits in a household. Together, the message is clear: she's ready, but don't get cocky. You feel elated, also slightly terrified. The next phase is the betrothal test, a mix of symbolic gesture, ancestral approval, and one very awkward chicken. It begins at dawn. You're led to her family's courtyard, newly swept and scattered with flower petals. There's incense burning. An elder marks your forehead with white clay, then places a feather behind your ear. Your hands are washed in a bowl scented with lemongrass, and then the calabash is brought out. It contains a single egg, balanced in the center. Your task: carry it across the courtyard without letting it crack. You're not alone. She walks with you, matching your pace. If the egg falls, it means you weren't in rhythm together. If you rush ahead or lag behind, bad omen. If you succeed well, you get to keep courting her. Congratulations. You walk, slowly, carefully. Your hands tremble again, but she steadies them with a look. The courtyard is silent except for the faint drumming in the distance and the occasional, impatient cluck of the chickens someone tied too close to the tree. Halfway across, the egg tilts. You gasp but manage to adjust your grip. She suppresses a grin. When you reach the end, the elder nods. You offer the egg to the ancestor shrine, place it gently in a small bowl of white clay. A libation is poured, a prayer is whispered. A gust of wind lifts the feather behind your ear and sends it dancing. The hardest parts are done. All that's left is one final dawn and a promise. It's still dark when your uncle knocks on your door. He doesn't say anything at first, just stands there in his woven cloth wrap, silhouetted by the oil lamp behind him. Then, with a single nod, he gestures toward the courtyard. It's time. You move in silence, dress slowly, layering your best wrapper and slipping the feather charm, yes, the same one, into your sash. You can hear roosters testing their throats in the distance. One by one, a hint of ash lingers in the morning air, mingling with lemongrass and last night's fire. This is the day of eye for eye, the gentle betrothal. Not yet marriage, but close enough that the spirits will want to weigh in. The courtyard is already alive with quiet motion. Her family has laid out raffia mats and low stools beneath the silk cotton tree. Pots of water glint in the torchlight, and a single white chicken struts through the crowd, deeply unimpressed by the ceremonial gravity of the situation. You sit. She sits opposite. There is no speaking, yet only the sound of the phantom from drums. Far away, keeping a slow, steady heartbeat under everything. The two families form a loose circle round you both, not facing directly inward. That would be too aggressive. Everything about this moment must be soft, indirect, cautious. Like approaching a shy bird. An elder from your side clears his throat. We have brought our son to plant a seed, he begins. But we will not water the ground unless your trees offer shade. It's a metaphor so old it predates the kingdom itself. You suppress a grin. He's doing well. Her aunt responds, as is tradition, with something slightly cryptic. Shade is useful. But snakes like it too. We prefer flowers. Is your son a flower? You're suddenly very aware of your posture. You sit straighter. A few more verbal proverbs are traded, each one laced with respectful teasing, light warnings, careful approval. Eventually, after enough talking around the subject to make a spiral look like a straight line, the eldest matriarch from her family stands up and beckons the chicken. Yes. Now comes the bird part. A bowl is placed before the chicken. Into it goes a mix of water, ground kola nut, and ash. The bird is encouraged to peck, if it does, and drinks calmly. It's said that the ancestors approve. If it flutters or flees, someone, usually you, is upset. The balance. The chicken blinks, sniffs the bowl. And begins to drink. Slow and steady. There's a soft exhale from the entire courtyard. You might not hear wedding bells, but the sound of a chicken politely hydrating is almost as good. Now the calabashes come out from your side, offerings: salt, cloth, beads, kola. A small gold ring shaped like an open palm from her side. Acceptance. They accept the salt. They accept the cloth. They swap the beads for others, green for yellow, just to balance things. They decline the gold ring for now. She must decide about that one later. It's not refusal. It's suspense. Then her grandmother steps forward with the final test. She carries a tiny stool, barely large enough to hold a jug of water. It's carved from a single block of wood, its legs uneven on purpose, its seat smoothed by years of oil and prayer. This she places in front of you. You're told to sit, not because it's comfortable, it's not. The stool is wobbly and low, and your knees don't thank you. But this is tradition, a symbolic demonstration that you can lower yourself without breaking your dignity. You manage, though your back protests. She nods. You passed out at last. You are invited to share a drink from the same calabash palm wine, thick and slightly sour, poured from a bottle wrapped in red twine. One sip for you. One for her. One splash. For the earth. The matriarch raises her hands. It is enough, she says. Let the trees and birds remember this day. And like that, it's done. No fireworks. No triumphant trumpet fanfare. Just the quiet weight of tradition, the satisfied shuffle of sandals on clay, and a dawn sky finally turning pink above the courtyard leaves. You walk her home in silence. There is no need to speak. She brushes your arm with her fingers just once, deliberately, and you feel it down to your bones. The wind catches the edge of your wrapper and lifts it slightly just as the first shaft of sunlight spills over the rooftops, casting everything in that golden hush only early mornings can deliver. Later, people will talk about this day in metaphor. They'll say, he carried the egg without cracking it, or she brought the lion's tail back in one piece. But you'll remember it as it was. Soft footsteps on damp earth, the smell of palm wine, a nervous chicken, and the quiet moment where the families exhaled together in approval. And that, finally, brings us to the edge of sleep. So now, as the drums fade into the memory of morning mist, and the courtyard stills in the golden hush of early sun, you can let yourself drift. Your feet are dusty but light. Your hands still smell faintly of clay and salt. The echoes of the marketplace have long since softened into lullabies, and the careful poetry of wrapped beads, carved tokens, and gentle posture now wraps around your thoughts like a woven cloth, secure, familiar, and warm. The Ashanti courtship rituals weren't loud. They weren't urgent. They were never meant to be. They unfolded like a story told by a quiet elder around a low fire, in the pauses between songs, in the rhythm of footsteps along a village path just before dawn. So if your eyes are heavy now, that's all right. Let them close. Picture the silk cotton tree in the courtyard, branches heavy with shadow and promise. Picture the calabash set gently on the earth, balanced and full. Picture the chicken finally deciding to sit down and nap, now that her work is done. And if a breeze stirs through your room, maybe it's carrying the scent of lemongrass from the ancestor shrine. Or maybe it's just a quiet whisper, reminding you everything's in place, everything's unfolding slowly, just as it should. Sleep well, traveler.